everybody? Welcome back to another Thirsty Thursday edition of Fourth and Go here on the Heat Ratio Sports Network. We are Philly 4 for 4 and so much more. I'm Dave Gluckner. That's Marc Tomasini. We're about to get real tonight as we talk Eagles offseason moves. They're already kind of sprinting out of the gates. We'll talk Sixers. Embiid put up a masterpiece. Talk some Flyers, and even the Phillies are starting to get going here as we approach spring training. So with all that, let me welcome in the man, the Philly sports source, Marc Tomasini. What's up, bud?
What up? What up? It's like you said, it's Thirsty Thursday. No alcohol in this, even though it feels like there is. I got some Theraflu in my cup, fighting the sickness, but here to give some. I don't say I like to give hot takes, but just to give my hot opinions. So.
Well, you got something hot in your hands, so I mean, mix that in. You'll get those hot takes going. And I'm ready to hear them all as we roll into a jam-packed show here, and we'll start with always the top of the line, which is the Eagles in this town. But in more, they deservedly so because they're making a lot of waves here over the last week since we last talked, and it was apparent in our last show last Thursday that Sirianni was going to be retained. And, pretty much made it official. Before we get into some of the moves they're starting to make and the noises we're starting to hear, I'll just say this. Official because him and Howie spoke yesterday. And whatever they said, it was a lot of gibberish, a lot of things that weren't cohesive, in my opinion. And there just wasn't much to it. And they look dumber and dumber as they try and kind of stand themselves back up from this epic fall that they had. There's no real confidence that they're building. And myself and probably most of the fan base, I thought it was a shit show. I'm going to be honest. And I didn't really have any liking of it. There wasn't a sense I could take out there. He says he's going to do better next year. Yeah, well, you're a lame duck. You're a dead man walking. You got to do better. But in the end, it reminded me of how he entered Philadelphia, which was stumbling over his words and not even being able to put things together. And then after all this prep work, all these years here, he still looks like the same. I don't want to say fool, but where I'm going.
You're not wrong. For once, I'm actually going to use my words lightly here, envious about how Dallas did it. Everybody thought that Mike McCarthy was going to get canned, which I thought, Belichick kind of right for the picking. And Jerry Jones came out with a statement and said, we're sticking with Mike McCarthy. They didn't do a press conference. They didn't make a big thing about it. There was no need for this press conference whatsoever. Nothing was gained out of it. It, like you said, it made them look worse. I think there was a plan to look somber. And I do think that they were put through the ringer. I think they were, you can tell it's a long season. They're tired. They're beat. Sirianni's looked bad for a while, bags under his eyes. There was just no point. Nothing was accomplished. They didn't give the status on anybody or anything. They asked him what his, what that means. And he really couldn't even answer what he is, but he just talks about, changing the culture and maybe sitting in on a couple defensive meetings. This was worse. There was not one positive thing that came out of this meeting whatsoever. It was a waste of time. Yeah,
I agree. And, there's some little tidbits there that, whoever's coming in, it's going to be a new offense. Oh, wow. That's so exhilarating. I can't wait to see, the whatever you're going to try and unveil, because I don't care what you say right now. You got to do. And what they fail to recognize is nobody's believing them. They're just not credible. And it was a waste of our time. And, I didn't spend a ton of time on it, so it didn't waste too much time. But I just didn't get what I needed out of it. And that was – and I think you're kind of spot on here. It was the resounding vote of confidence that Nick's our guy. Jerry Jones gave it to McCarthy. Does he – but he also said, I'm not renewing his contract. He's got to earn it, which, hey, amen. Yeah, he's got to earn it. 3 straight 12-win seasons, can't get past the second round. But at least he gave him, a resounding, hey, here's your chance. This, I don't even know. Officially, they didn't even say they're keeping him.
Right. that those words never came out of his mouth. I mean, you got to think, it seems like that they're bringing in Fangio, right? I don't think he officially signed, but they said he was coming in today to sign a contract to be the new defensive coordinator. He's got head coaching experience. Does the offensive coordinator they bring in, does he have head coaching experience? Could this be a lame duck situation where they get off to a bad start, through 10 games? Do they pull the plug and bring in one of the guys? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the spot on, Adam. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, like I don't. So,
what up, Cease?
My thoughts here are a little bit complex on your sentence there. I think they may not have the ultimate confidence in Sirianni, but I think they like to pull the strings, so they know that they can pull them with Sirianni. They like to maybe have a little bit more power in who comes in, who comes out, how things are run, and they can do that with Sirianni. So maybe they don't have the utmost confidence in him. I agree, but they're not going to be able to puppet a Belichick, a Harbaugh, even a Vrabel.
Right.
Pete Carroll, any name that you can think that's still out there that would have been a viable option for this team, they weren't going to be able to puppeteer their way through this. So while they might not have confidence in Sirianni, they know they can use them, and they know, and they have an absolute fall guy now for next year.
Yes. Yeah, and then they can start anew the year after that. It does seem like a wasted year. Even on Twitter this week, or X, whatever you want to call it, I forget if I put something out there first or if Tony put out something out there first. But I said this goes either one of two ways. Either they're amazing or they're terrible. And he was like, yeah. He was like, I see it being terrible. He's like, I'm there with you. And it's just like, I don't even know how I could have the confidence that could be good. I just don't think there's a middle of the road for this team. It's really just, they look so out of sorts. And that press conference did nothing to help. Now, obviously, it's just the beginning of the offseason and they can change things, but I'm telling you, this looks like a disbanded, broken, mess of an organization at this point. And it's just crazy how we fell from grace from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think the point's well taken. I'll leave my judgment a little bit. If I got to take it on face now, I think next year could be really bad. The one thing I will say is, they're with Fangio, like I kind of wanted a newer look, a fresher perspective, but I can actually buy into a little bit of bringing in someone like Vic, because if you do go re-sign Brandon Graham and you do bring in Fletcher one more time, and the latter is probably more far-fetched than the former of those. You got an elder statesman that can really kind of that they can trust. Put it that way. The veterans can trust because they know Vic. He was around a little bit, like we mentioned, and as well as he's coached some really good defenses. He really has. I mean, did he stink in Denver? Yeah, but they had decent defense. So I think I'm kind of buying into the Fangio stuff, and I think I mentioned earlier. I did a quick bell ringer report, and I think you've probably seen this at some point. This guy's the ultimate Phillies fan too. Have you seen that? Yeah, yes, which is pretty cool. Now that kind of makes you think he bargained his way out of Miami once he saw this was open.
Right. And that whole situation itself was just so weird, with Gannon taking so long and like Miami offering the job. And it's just like, I can't wait on the Eagles, so I'm going to have to go take it. And then he pulled himself out, and they weren't a bad defense last year in Miami. Like, they kept it together for a while. So
they did. Injuries killed him at the end. Bradley Chubb got hurt. The other kid, Jalen Phillips.
Yeah. Was it Von Ginkel? Was it the linebacker?
Something? He did too. Well, the Chubb got hurt when they were down 35 to Miami. I mean, to Baltimore. Yeah. It made no sense why he was in the game.
Right.
But Van Ginkel did too during the year. And I mean, they just couldn't get Ramsey. Like, Ramsey was hurt for the first half.
Most of the year,
yeah.
So, I mean, it's an interesting hire. I do agree. I kind of would have liked to seen something new. Now, a lot of people are saying, like, I think everybody likes Fangio and his defense himself, but all the people who have been running his defense aren't able to do it. Hopefully, we can get the best out of it. He's worked with good linebackers. Hopefully he has some hand in the talent that they go and try to acquire, whether that's, reaching out to a linebacker in free agency or whether it's in the draft. It'll be interesting to see if they are able to bring in some more defensive talent because they need it.
Oh, yeah.
I saw something today that the Luvuvu, Luvuvu from Carolina, he's a free agent. That's somebody that they could go after. It would be nice.
Linebacker, right?
Yes. Yeah. Linebacker.
Yeah.
That would be good to see them make a play like that. I think they need to make some stark moves out there. But maybe they go a young approach and they have Fangio for the experience, and then they have a young gun. There, that's the hope.
But I grade the move of bringing Fangio in B+. I mean, I'm very high on it, and that can easily turn into something higher. I mean, you're probably not going to get much better when you think about what was available. Wink is older and he's aggressive and had some good defenses in Baltimore, decent with the Giants, but I like Fangio better. And you did Ron Rivera,
right.
So, and then there was another one. What was it? Raheem Morris that they were talking to too at the time, and now I know he's a head coach, but
I don't think it was Raheem Morris. I feel like there was somebody else though.
Someone Jacksonville's ex-coordinator, I think it was.
Oh, Brian Nielsen.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. And he got a job
quickly. Yeah. See, at what point does Kelsey come? I think if I'm gonna kind of look at the pattern we saw, and I did watch a little bit of that Kelsey show last year. He drugged this thing into what I want to say right up to free agency.
Yeah,
because he had a big decision for cap hit or not. So I think we're going to see him draw this out probably till end of February, early March. So in the end, I do think he retires. I mean, he was beer chugging everything this last weekend, and it was awesome. And he's living a great life. I don't see why, we'll see. I think he'll retire on his terms. Would I love him back? Sure. But I think he drags out till just about free agency.
Yeah. It's a little frustrating when that's the case. I get it. At the same time, he's kind of earned it, but I'm a little perturbed by it because I think he knows what he's going to do one way or the other.
But he doesn't want to do it now with Travis still playing, right?
No. But it should be not long after the Super Bowl.
And it could be. It could be. It's just so.
Yeah.
I've always had this argument, and then that's why I was okay with Favre coming in and out. And you even heard some stories this year that Brady thought about coming back. Right. It's really hard to know when to hang it up. Look, it's hard for us to weekend softball to hang it up. Like, can't imagine when you're at the top of the level. So
that's true.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, and I did see some interesting news about Saquon Barkley and how they could afford him and how he would be a perfect fit here. I don't disagree with that, at any point, but you got to see how this thing unfolds up in New York. And in the end, I really don't want to spend money on running back. Running back wasn't the problem this year. It wasn't.
No, I honestly think they're probably better off bringing in Swift. Obviously, he doesn't cost you as much. And I think if they get an offensive coordinator, if they're going to do a new offense, they bring in a new offensive coordinator, somebody that maybe appreciates the run. I don't know if we're going to get that because we know that Jeffrey Lurie loves to pass the ball. He loves to throw the ball. He has made it clear. So I don't think they're going to bring in somebody who's going to be like, well, I want to run the ball. I would hope at least somebody has a little more running of an edge, or at least uses Swift out of the backfield, like catching balls out of the outfield in the backfield on top of running the ball. I think that would be your best use of him. I think it would make him more dynamic, and I think it would make the offense more dynamic if they really started rolling him out of the backfield, because I've always thought he could be the runner that he was, but I felt like the perfect use of him is in both fashions.
Yep.
Like that's what he did well in Detroit, is catch the ball out of the backfield. He was one of the, I think, one of the more dynamic players to do so. And then they barely used him out of the backfield.
Yeah, not catching the ball in it. And we thought it was the Miles Sanders theory, like he just has hands or feet for hands. No, it's just that we don't throw the ball to the backs. It's and yet you heard everything this year that they were going to be different. Well, they weren't different in that aspect. So I agree with you there. And I do agree that, for what this team needs, what would fit well, I do think bringing Swift back is probably it's fine. And I don't think he's going to cost that much.
I mean, you're thinking what, like nothing more than what Miles Sanders got. And I think he deserves it more than what Miles Sanders got it for, but I don't think it would even be close to that. I think you can get a 1 or 2 year deal for maybe like 10, 12 million.
Yeah. And I'm good with it. Local guy doesn't, stir any pots. He just goes to work, runs hard. Love it. Love it. I'll bring him back in a heartbeat. And C says a little comment in there about some basketball, and we'll talk about that coming up with the doc moving on to Milwaukee. That's going to be an interesting conversation you and I have. But let's talk offensive coordinators right now, because we had a few names that have already been interviewed. Today's news, Kellen Moore in the house, or they're doing virtual either way. They're interviewing him today. I shouldn't even call him an ex-coordinator from LA Chargers yet, but with Jim Harbaugh signing there yesterday, writing's on the wall that he's going to be looking for employment. With Kellen Moore, Gerard Johnson, Houston Texans quarterback coach, and Cliff Kingsbury, they're the three names I've heard interviewed so far. Do any of them intrigue you all? And if so, who do you kind of prefer out of that group, or is there some other noise that you like, or some other candidates?
I would say Kellen Moore, probably the most out of any of them. Cliff Kingsbury, he's got a resume, but the thing is, I feel like he didn't get the most out of his scenarios. I think he's had a lot of talent, and he's kind of lucked into most of them. And I also think that he kind of almost deteriorated, like Caleb Williams, for example. And I think was he the quarterback coach this year for USC, or was he?
Yeah, he was like the offensive assistant.
Yeah, offensive assistant, and Caleb Williams didn't have as great of a year as he had the year prior. So it was like one of those things where
I don't blame that on Kingsbury. Again, his completion percentage was up, his yards were like that team. Like he got worse because the coach came in.
Maybe, but Kellen Moore, I think Cease actually touches on it. He was very good in Dallas. I feel like their play calling, I feel like their offense was better previously when he was there in Dallas.
I agree.
And I think his scenario in LA is I feel like Staley had a curse on that team, and Staley making the decisions is the reason why they weren't as good as they were, and they dealt with injuries as well. So Kellen Moore is a guy, if you really give him the keys to the car, and if this is really his offense, I think it could do wonders.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. Kellen Moore is probably the best name of that group, but I am intrigued by Gerard Johnson a little bit. Just he's 35 again, coming out under Slowick, so he's learning a lot in Houston, and obviously was under that development piece for CJ. He also has a relationship with Nick in Indianapolis. I think he was like quality control coach, something like that over there. When they were there together.
Also worries me a little bit.
Yeah, and he's also touched the Shanahan tree a little bit. So interesting candidate, don't get me wrong, was a quarterback at Texas A&M. But Kingsbury, I'm not ruling out for this reason. I think he's got something to prove.
Correct. That would be the reason why I'd be intrigued.
And that's why I'm like, I could really get on board with the Kingsbury stuff. And when he got fired by Arizona, I think everyone in the NFL was like, first off, he probably shouldn't even had a job. Like, he just came out of nowhere and got a job over all these people. But he'd be a better coordinator anyway. That was just kind of the rumor mill coming out. So, I think something to prove. I'm interested in all. I think all are really good potential candidates. And it's great to hear, because when I first was like, oh, they're going to go out shopping, there's nobody to shop for. Didn't quite see Kellen Moore opening up, right? Didn't quite see, Kingsbury wanting to come out of college this quick, only being in USC, like you said, for a year. And this is interesting. I keep hearing this name. I tell you, I got it, but like he's kind of like, to me, he's faded a little bit in recent years. What do you think?
I actually think the same thing. He was really hot commodity a couple of years ago, and then it just kind of cooled off. I don't. Where is he even now? Because he wasn't still in Tampa.
No, well, I think he
He
actually.
was
Well,
in
he
Tampa
wasn't.
previously.
I think he's out of football right now. Or did
Yeah,
he go back to? Did he go back to Pittsburgh? I'm looking
I don't
here.
think so.
Yeah, as a player, as a coach, yeah, it looks like he took a year off.
Yeah.
Last time was with Tampa in 2022, and then their offensive coordinator just got the Panthers job.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I like Byron Leftwich. I still have this memory of him being thrown a pass and being picked up and lifted and drugged
Yes,
down the field
Marshall.
so they could, spike the ball.
Yeah.
So, what a tough as nails player. Interesting candidate. Don't get me wrong. And another one I was thinking earlier. I think one that where the wick is burnt a little bit is Eric Bieniemy. I'm just curious. I think what I'm hearing is he's just a little bit of a tough guy, a tough personality.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of opportunities he's had, and it's never come to fruition. It just hasn't happened. And you always got to wonder why is that? It's been so many years now, and I just think that the Eagles probably aren't going to be that patient, because they're going to have to wait until after the championship weekend, because it looks like Ben Johnson's probably going to take the job. So the enemy can't officially interview.
Ben Johnson in Washington, you're saying?
Yeah. Because he can't technically interview because
he still has a job.
Right. They didn't wipe him off their roster yet, even though Rivera got fired.
Yeah. But they could do him a solid and just fire him.
They could, right? But they haven't.
Here's another name. Yes, Jim Bob's interesting because he's with Steichen, I want to say, in Indianapolis right now.
I'm trying to think because I remember him from Detroit. I believe so.
And we've had interest in him in the past. I think he applied for the job last year, and or at least they talked to him for sure. I'm gonna see. Pretty sure he's in Indianapolis, offensive coordinator. Yep. So I think that would be interesting because it's definitely someone who would probably have a really good grasp of what we have going on here. So I agree. Jim Bob Tudor, plus we just love the name.
Right. And if he brought along Steichen's offense with him, even though I thought is he was going to pass the keys to Brian Johnson, and it just wasn't the case at all. Now, I think it was more Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni deciding we're going to make our own offense and we're going to make it work. That's what I think it was. Because I thought, oh, this is great. Brian Johnson was quarterback coach. He gets a promotion and he's going to, use Steichen's offense and then add some to it, and it was nothing. It was nothing.
No, I agree. All right, well, there's a lot going on out there. Yes, exactly. That's great. But there's a lot going on out there in Eagles country right now. Believe what you want. What we do know is it will look different next year.
Yep.
And that's obviously a good thing. But where it goes from here, we're gonna have to see because they're going to have to build our trust back because right now, even like we said after that press conference yesterday, it ain't there. But winning can cure everything. So let's see what happens as they build this coaching staff and then ultimately a roster. But let's talk a little bit about the NFL playoffs. Last weekend brought us 4 really good games. I mean, Houston, Baltimore eventually pulled away by a 10-10 game at half. Let's be honest, San Fran should have lost that game so many different ways. Green Bay's kicker killed him, and then Love panicked at the end and threw a bad ball that they intercepted. But Green Bay had so many chances to really put that away. But sometimes you got to be lucky to win in this league, to win the big one in this league, and San Fran did. So that was a great game. And then the Sunday games. Baker hung in there, man. He hung tough, didn't he?
He really did.
He did. And then the night one, it's just the pain I feel for that franchise of Buffalo. But it's just, I just don't know if they could, I think of the Washington Capitals. I think of the what was I going to say? Baseball team. I guess in a way, the Braves, when they had lost for so long and recently won the World Series, their teams, even the Dodgers. I mean, I know it was during COVID, they just always lose in the playoffs. Maybe the Bills can finally pull it one, but this could be it, man. It could be.
They lost that game.
He missed a touchdown at the end. Missed a touchdown.
Yeah, they blew that game for themselves, and
they panicked with
about it. Oh yeah,
with the fake punt.
The DeMar Hamlin in their own. What were they on there? Like 30, 35, something like that.
Yeah, and they say, "Oh, they had 10 on the field."
Well, right, so
you couldn't even block 10.
Yeah,
you were short by 3 yards.
Yeah, it didn't work out well for them. I thought that was the most disappointing thing. I think
it was
of everything that happened.
It was, but now we move to championship weekend, and I tell you, man, this is really good. There's some awesome storylines, some just two great matchups of 1 versus 3 on both sides. It's going to be really, really good. So I'm excited. I'm pumped. I want to get into these games with you real fast. I'm all Lions and Ravens as well, but I do feel like, as much as I want to say scripted Ravens Niners, don't leave out scripted Chiefs, because there's a lot going on from the head ref down to some of the other things that we're seeing. But let's open up with the AFC Championship. And Mark, as a recap, I mean, I know when I finalized my picks, I went 2-2 over at Win Daily Sports. What did you have us at?
You were 3-1.
Yeah,
I was 1-3. Which one did you switch?
No, later in the weekend, I think I ended up. Did I have Packers?
You had Packers, yeah.
Yep, I switched to the 9. I had this story in my head. So number 1 seeds are 10-14-2 against the spread in the divisional round, and I just I thought one would cover and one wouldn't, so I switched at the last second because I liked Houston. That was my one other loss. But that's all right. I want to get into the AFC Championship game. There's so many numbers tossing around here. Mahomes 9-0-1-1 as an underdog. I want to say 9-0-1 as an underdog. This is all against the spread on the road. I think he's like 11-2 straight up as an underdog. He's just phenomenal as an underdog. So, and he did it last weekend. And when I think the spread is over 4, he's like 5-0 ATS as an underdog. He's tough, man. And I don't know how they're going to be able to really combat the things he can do back there, because if Baltimore doesn't get pressure, and then they are built upon pressure, they led the league in sacks, he's going to dissect them, similar to what he did against Buffalo. I mean, outside of, what was it, Mecole Hardman fumble out of the end zone, I mean, Kansas City might run away with that double digits. So, and then you got Baltimore on the other side, who really proved something last week. They finally, like, the Lamar Jackson of the regular season came to play in the playoffs, and that was awesome. And the defense was, like, that is a defense. I mean, Houston didn't even get inside like the 30. Like, that is a defense. So it's crazy. How are you looking at this game?
Well, for one thing, I just want the Chiefs out just because of everything that is surrounding them. But
I agree.
But realistically, we finally, and I feel like, this was my big point last week, Lamar Jackson has never showed up in the playoffs. He showed up.
Yes.
He played really well. The team as a whole played really well. Even when it was close, when it was tight, you never felt like Lamar was out of it. Like, you felt he was there. He was in this game. And I think that's huge for them going forward. And I think with such a good roster, and like I said, I think the Bills choked. I think they blew that game. And, they talk about Mahomes' record in the playoffs, and now he's got to do 2 road games back-to-back for the first time ever. I think this might be where everything catches up to him. I think Baltimore just is a better team on both sides of the ball on paper. And I think that the way that they beat Houston, how they turned it on the second half and they ran away with it, I definitely like the way that things are coming together for Baltimore. So the script says Baltimore, and I'm still riding with that. I really think that they're here to play.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. Going back and forth on this and how last week I really did eventually settle into the Chiefs because of Buffalo's ineptitude and inability to win close games and win big games when they matter. And they just don't do it. Baltimore's a little different. Harbaugh's 9-3 ATS since 2012 in the playoffs. Teams, they're playing their fourth straight home game now. They haven't traveled since Christmas Day to San Francisco. They've been able to stay comfy. You mentioned it. Kansas City now traveling for a second straight week, but 3 weeks out of the last 4, they had to go to the Chargers on the last week of the regular season. So they've been having to move around, not being able to sit still. I think that is a big deal. And Baltimore proved it to me last week. That defense has something to say. Yeah. And I think they're going to be able to neutralize / shut down Kelsey. And then who you got? I mean, I know Rice is solid, but don't get me wrong. Like, it's going to come back to the Chiefs receivers having to win a game, and I don't think they can do it. I like Baltimore. And I like them. Cease's putting up a 3-point game. I think they're actually going to cover the number. Number's moved up to 4. I like Baltimore by 6. So give me Baltimore. I'll go an odd number. Oh, no, I'll go 27-21.
Okay. Yeah, I think I like Baltimore here in a little higher scoring of a game, 31-24.
All right. Yeah, 7 point. I'm in the 6. So we both have them covering and heading to the Super Bowl in Vegas. The next game up, NFC Championship. Man, as much as, I know Dan Campbell can mess things up, I also know his personality is infectious, and the team can really, be guided by that infectious personality. I think they did it again last week, but let's not get silly here. They beat the Rams and the Bucs in 2 games, both at home. So it's not like they beat world beaters, but I will say this much. This Detroit Lions team is good. They're really good, and they deserve to be here. They played some tough road games this year. Remember, they opened the year beating Kansas City on the road, Thursday Night Football, when they were receiving the rings. That was an outright win. They should have won outright against Dallas if they didn't get the linemen, checking in on the 2-point conversion. They're damn good. I think 7 points is a lot. And for me, I'll take the Lions right now. Now, it kind of hinges on Debo a little bit. Debo practiced today, but the Niners are 1-4 ATS without Debo, or 1-4 straight up, 0-5 ATS without Debo this year. They need him. They need him bad. And if he doesn't play, it's all Lions for me. If he does, wait and see what I come out with on Sunday. But right now, I'm going to take the 7. I think 7's quite a bit for a Lions team that I think can lace it up and can play tough football against one of the toughest teams in the league.
I look at this game like the way that Tampa Bay looked at the game against Detroit. I think Detroit was clearly the better team, but Baker and Tampa Bay hung in there. I think this is the same scenario. San Francisco is clearly the better team on paper than the Lions. Lions still very good. They've been battle tested throughout the season. Dan Campbell gets these guys up for the moment. At the end of the day, I think San Francisco is just going to be a little too much for Detroit. But I agree. I think this is a close game. I think this is probably a 3 or 4 point game. Something crazy along those lines. They're going to play. They're going to bring the house. I think they're going to, the only problem is if they bring the house and he's able to get the ball out, especially if Debo's there, get out quick. That's where San Francisco is going to beat you. But if they can cause some pressure on Purdy, it's going to be quite a day. It's going to be a lot closer game than thought. But I'm going to say that the Lions cover the spread, but the Niners win the game.
I agree. I so want to take the Lions out right here, but something stupid is going to happen near the end, and they're going to feel heartbroken. That's a city that just never been to a Super Bowl, and you got this riverboat gambler here that will just, if he finds 1 second of panic, he's going to do something wild. I just feel it, and I feel like it's going to cost them the game. Similar to what happened in Green Bay too with the missed little field goal. So I think San Fran does scrape by. I think we're seeing second straight year of 2 number 1 seeds in the Super Bowl. And it just goes to show, in an era of one bye, how important that is. So I'm with you. Cease is going Lions. I want to. I really want to.
Yeah, I would love
to. One thing I will say, if you see Kansas City win against Baltimore, I may go all in Lions money line, because NFL wants to script it easy for KC, in my opinion. Right. And I think, if you want to talk scripts, if you want to have Swifties and everybody rolling out there with the confetti after the Super Bowl, they're going to want to play the Lions. And remember, that was a week 1. It would be a week 1 rematch. And
they were going to have the Cinderella of Detroit being there. And I think that would just be good for the league. Yeah, they would benefit in that way.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing there.
If the Chiefs win early, watch out. That's all I'm saying. Baltimore wins. I think they could live with either of those teams getting there, but obviously 1 versus 1 is something that, they would line up. And Baltimore played San Fran in the one Super Bowl that Harbaugh did win. If you remember, Kaepernick versus Flacco, right?
Yes, that was correct. And then that was New Orleans, and the lights went out to start the game. And
yes, good call. Good call. All right, NFL news. Well, as we get out of here real quick, just the coaching carousel. I think it's been, less dramatic than we thought. Harbaugh making the leap. It wasn't even a surprise anymore after just, him not really ruling anything out and hitting the penultimate point in college football of winning at Michigan, a place that hadn't really won a solo national championship for about 50, 60 years. So not surprising. Everything else, I mean, Raheem Morris a little surprised, but it's been bad. And the only thing I'll ask you now is, does Belichick even get a job anywhere? I'm thinking no.
No, I mean, it seems like the 2 jobs that are left are Seattle and
Washington.
Washington, it looks like it's going to be Ben Johnson, but again, they really can't do anything with that until after the conference championship. And it seems like all signs are pointing to Dan Quinn up in Seattle. And I actually heard that Chip Kelly could potentially be the OC there. That would be something. There was
he didn't get fired out of UCLA.
I don't think so, but there's been a lot of talk about him coming to the NFL. Yeah.
Well, UCLA's moving over to the Big Ten. I don't know. Maybe does that scare them? I guess that's possible. Get in now before they get beat up. Maybe.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I've heard. And because somebody is like, there was something also out there about, the Eagles or something like that. I was like, that would never happen. But I was like, I'm here for the circus, and I would just love to see what would happen if that happened. But obviously the relationship was tethered between Lurie and Chip, so there was no way. But that's a rumor that I've heard, is that Chip could be an OC out in Seattle. Would be interesting.
Yeah, would be. All right. Yeah. The one thing I did hear down in Atlanta was that they were interested in Belichick, but his mix or his personality wouldn't mix really with their ownership down there. So, and the control he wanted. So it looks like Belichick might have to make some concessions if he wants to coach in the NFL again, but he'll be fine. I'm not worried about him. I'm sure he's not worried about himself either. If he really wants to coach again, he'll find a way. It just may not be in 2024. Talking about the next sport, the next topic on our agenda is the Philadelphia 76ers. As you can see in the title of the show down below, Embiid dropped 70 on Monday night against Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs. And coming out of that game, Mark, let me tell you, and maybe I'm the Mario, maybe you agree, 70 was amazing. And then we're going to talk about where it ranks on some of the Sixers games. I was almost equally impressed by Wembanyama. Even this guy is everything he's hyped up to be. But the length, he can just spin around Embiid and reach and do a layup. Embiid usually eats people, he swats that stuff away. He couldn't, with how long Victor is. So I'll just say, slightly less impressed, but I mean, just about equally impressed. I think the kid is good.
Yeah, he's on a minutes restriction. He scored 33 points. He was able to do what he wanted to do. But that's also why I thought it was impressive that Embiid got 70 against them, because he was going against somebody who was bigger than him. It's not like he was against, like, when Houston was playing small ball and they had like Robert Covington as their center. Like, and that would be one where it'd be like, okay, it's a little of a farce. But like this, he spent half the time going against Wembanyama, who was able to offensively have his way against Embiid. Really, Embiid's stature allows it. It honestly, like, it's like Shaq going up against, I'm trying to think of like somebody skinny.
Chris Dudley. No, he wasn't skinny, but he ran. I remember the memory of him just flooring him.
Bodying people. Right. Yeah. And but there was a moment before the game where Wembanyama was warming up and Embiid just kind of walked behind him and like kind of looked up like, oh, like, wow, he is big. Like,
big. Yeah.
Because he's not used to that. He doesn't see that. And but yeah, Wembanyama, I mean, the one thing is that crazy layup spin thing. It's ridiculous, but it's so weird. He just like places the ball in there. It's just, and even though he is only a couple inches bigger than Embiid, he still looks that much bigger than Embiid. Like, it is crazy. Like, because Allie and I were sitting here watching, she's like, wait, I thought Embiid was big.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, he's like 7'5", 7'6".
Yeah.
He's no joke. And he's talented. Like, he just, I think the one thing he might need to do, I don't know if he's capable of it, he needs to put on some weight.
Yeah.
He could be completely dominant, kind of like Embiid, if he puts on the weight.
But how much weight? Because I look at Kevin Durant and he's never put on that, and you would like that. And but I agree, it has to be some form of weight. But I don't need him to be muscular.
No.
But yeah, I still think. I mean, and they weren't even trying to battle him from rebounds. I think he had like 18 that game, right? Like half of them were the offensive end, because it was a career high
for Embiid. Yeah, I thought the same thing too.
Yeah,
somebody said it, and I was like, no, there's no way. I looked it up, but 18's his career high.
Wow, good. Yeah, and I thought I might have heard something like that, but I thought
I thought he was in the 20s, but no.
Yeah.
And I think that's half the reason why he got the 70, because there was a lot of second, third opportunity rebounds that he was getting.
They weren't even like trying. They weren't even trying. But that's San Antonio. It was kind of neat to see him talking to Brett Brown after the game, and they still had that positive relationship. Him, Rocco, and who else?
Korkmaz.
Yeah. Korkmaz. He's still around. But yeah, that was interesting. But then I've been to so many Sixers games, seen so many memories live, but also on TV. I want to get where that. First off, where does that kind of game rank in your greatest Sixers memories or moments? Is it up there, or is it just one of those, hey, awesome, but there's some others that still sit way higher?
I think, given that it was on the 18-year anniversary of Kobe's 81. I think that was cool. I think going up against Wembanyama, it was really cool. Like, I was cheering and like slamming the table like every time he scored. Like, after he got to like 55, it was like, we're watching something. And did he technically need to be in the game? No, they kept it close. They were within 9 late in the game. He didn't need to, but it was one of those things. You let the guy have this moment. It's not a given that he'll always have these opportunities. Now, he made it look easy. He really did make it look easy.
Yeah.
Everything was falling. I mean, it was a really great moment. I think other moments that I've really lived through, I would say when Iverson was putting up 50s in the playoff run.
Yeah.
Because that really, scoring that much back then was not as big of a, like, there's more offense now.
Right, in 90-point games. Like, people were scoring 90s back then. Now it's like 110.
He was scoring 52 because he was the whole offense in that 0-1 run.
Yeah, Charlotte, I think it was against. Yeah.
Like Toronto going back and forth with Vince Carter, like those. But that was the playoffs. That's why. Because Iverson had plenty of 50-point games, but seeing it in the conference finals against the Bucks and the second round against the Raptors, or if that was flipped around, I think I'm right. But regardless, I think he had a
first round was Pacers, second Raptors, third Bucks. Yep.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But he clinics then.
For me, I'll still say the step overs one. You know, it's just one of those. And to beat that team that night, and gives that glimmer of hope. The Vince Carter game, I was there live, was 2. I mean, the Milwaukee game 7 ranks up there too. Dikembe had to get a piece of the shot from Big Dog, I think it was at the time.
Yeah.
So that was, right up there. And then, like you said, I've been live seeing Iverson score 50. That was great. Been to his dunk contest when it was in Philly. And B's right up probably top 3, 4 with that 70-point game, because it's a Sixers franchise record. It's just the reason it's not as high for me as those other ones are, like you mentioned, playoffs.
The moment, right?
Playoffs, the moment but I mean, this was a January game against a very bad team, but still, it was special. It was awesome to see. And like you said, when the 3-ball went in, I think it was, they got in 59 right around the end of the third. You're like, ooh, all right, we might be getting it. 60s are happening, but 70, is it possible? And then, and you were tweeting at the same time, because I wasn't watching, or it wasn't on my radar, but you said something about Cat, and I looked, dude, at 42 or 44 at half.
Yeah, he was 7 of 10, I think, from,
or 8 of 9.
Yeah, something like that.
I think he was 8 of 9 at half. Yeah, because it was
he trailed off towards the. I mean, he still finished with 62.
Yeah, and then
and they lost that game. That's what's insane about it.
Yeah, but then Durant's reaction when he dropped 43 in the comeback against Chicago, 70?
Yeah.
70? Yeah, that was just...
He loves Embiid. He loves Embiid.
Yeah, he does, right?
That's not the first time he's said glaring things about Joel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Now, tonight, it's unfortunate, but, I actually bet against the Sixers tonight. They just thought... It wasn't as much as the letdown from 70 because they had 2 days off, but they also played Denver on Saturday.
Right.
So this one was like kind of stuck in the middle of that hype train. He barely gets to his 30 tonight for the 22nd straight game, but got 31 before he was pulled at the end of the third. But one point I want to make about your not having to be in the game, I don't disagree with that, except he only played 38 minutes that night. It was like the least amount of minutes ever played for a game that was scored, someone having 70 at least.
Right. That's
so
true.
It's not like I was going to say they didn't overplay him.
Right.
I could see your argument, like if he only had 30, was he going to play the last up until a minute left? Probably not. But the game did get a little close. It did.
Right. I mean, at that and you saw the last when he came back in, the ball was get Joel the ball, let him go.
It was.
And then when Daniel House took a 3-ball and they booed the shit out of him.
Yeah, and he knew it, and he was laughing. But
you know what was great about Embiid that night? This was at the point where the points were a known thing. This was late third, I want to say, and he was dribbling down the court because you thought even in the third quarter you were like, just let him do his thing at this point. Like it wasn't clear as day, but it was let him do his thing. So he's taking the ball up court, he's running the floor, and when he did that like double reverse spin move. Assist to Kelly Oubre, I believe it was.
Yeah, no look.
Down low. No look. And it's like, I love what he's doing scoring-wise, but his passing game since Nurse got here has been tenfold so much better. And it's just something to be admired that Nick Nurse is getting the most out of him. And so even on a night, like he had a couple really nice assists. That night. I think he had another no look or something like that earlier in the game.
He had one on the fast break too. I think I kind of remember. It was like a no look. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how fitting that he actually ended the game with .70 on a fast break left hand, because for a big man to take it coast to coast, he's a different guy. He's a different animal. So, we've lived with this guy in our lives for roughly 10 years now.
Yeah.
And we've had our moments like Game 7 last year. It just really hurt because it didn't look like he wanted to be there. But deep down inside, maybe it was he already knew Harden quit. Maybe
it's possible.
Yeah, he could. And I do want to admit, for the times that here and there we could be a little bit hard on him. He's my second favorite Sixer of all time, and that's really hard for me to say because I loved Charles Barkley. I really did. I grew up and I loved him and Rick Mahorn. but there's no doubt in my mind, and
Right.
he's challenging Iverson, but it's going to be hard just because
I mean, there's one way you do it.
you
There's
win.
one way you do it. You hoist up the trophy, and he's number one.
Yeah, even
do it.
getting to the NBA Finals
Right.
could
Pushes
put him toe to toe.
Yes.
Because they both have an MVP now, possibly 2 MVPs. I'm
Right.
not going to crown Embiid yet because
No.
you know he's got a games played. He's on. We'll see. I think he can only miss 7 more,
Right.
to qualify. So it's going to be tight.
Yeah. I think I forgot what I was going to say, so I don't want to waste time.
Well, yeah, no, that's all right. I mean, the other thing I was going to say with him, how about the 36.5 points per game?
Mm-hmm.
Like this season in general,
it's been unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, he was already at 33 before the 70-point game, so it really didn't move the needle that much. I mean, it did. Don't get me wrong, but he's been out of this world. Like I said, I just think the overall his game stepping up, and I know what I was going to say. Going back to, how they gave up Game 7 with Nick Nurse, I don't think they're in that. I don't think they're giving up. Like I really think. And this could be even a segue to where we're going to go next. But with the last coach here, they quit. With Nick Nurse, I don't think he allows it. And that's why you're seeing the best ball that Joel Embiid has ever played. And I think it's tenfold. Like, I think he's so much better this year than last year. And I thought he was actually better the year before when he didn't win the MVP than last year.
Yep. But this is his best season by far. Yes. Let's move on to the news in Milwaukee. Doc Rivers, our ex-coach, has found the youth, found the rejuvenation while he was on NBA, ESPN and all other outlets, announcing the games. He's now back to coaching with the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are paying 3 coaches now: Budenholzer, Griffin, and Doc, and it supposedly gets a 4-year deal or so. $40 million.
Yeah.
I'm just.
He's a snake.
He is, but you can expound on that in a second. I'm floored. I understand the Griffin, like he just didn't mix well. He did have a problem with like assistants early in the season. The locker room was lost. I get it. But God, I mean, Budenholzer was 2 years removed from an NBA title. They had a good season last year. Like they always have good season. He's a good ass coach, and now you ended up with Doc. Like I understood that you wanted to go for some young blood who had a different angle. You really think Doc is better than Budenholzer?
Right.
Like that? Wow, that's where I'm at. But go ahead.
Yeah, so it came out that Doc was brought in around the time when it was coming to hiring coaches, that he would be some advisor to figuring out who their next coach would be.
In Milwaukee?
In Milwaukee. So he was there. He's been there. And he's been behind the scenes. And I almost think he was waiting for this moment. Like they were talking about, like, right when they fired him, they were like, oh, Doc Rivers has emerged. Like, really? And then there was a bunch of reports saying Doc Rivers has emerged, and everyone's going like this. And they have knowledge of him being in talks with the team since May. And then at the very last minute, they go, oh, there's 2 other coaches who could be in it. And then it's like, oh, we've hired Doc. And then it's like, oh, by the way, he's getting a 3.5-year deal for $40 million. This much guaranteed. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. He's a snake. And you know what? I hope that it collapses with him. Because he's the king of 3-1, of losing after being up 3-1.
Yep.
And he's just, and I remember when we were looking at getting Doc, and I was excited for it and everything like that. But he's not, like, he wants to coach so bad. He doesn't want to do the TV thing, which is surprising because he loves to play golf. But he's just not even that good of a coach. He's really not.
No. And he keeps
He's
ending
the
up
best
with
lifer.
Yeah. And he keeps ending up with these, stacked teams and finds ways to lose or to not rally them. I think his best coaching job was game, 5 last year when they got up 3-1, 4, whatever it was. No, we weren't up 3-1. We went up 3-2. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it was game 5, and he actually made some adjustments. And who was it? We had give me it. Someone had a huge game. Wasn't Tobias?
Melton? No.
Maybe. Was it George's? No. Was it McDaniel? Was that the game he made a couple adjustments and some bench players played well. But whatever it was, and it was the first time in 3 years I was like, oh wow, Doc can coach. He just refuses to. And then game 6 and 7 came. So good luck, Milwaukee. No, not really. No luck. Yeah, you'll see. You'll see. We've already seen. You'll see too. And I have no hate to Doc himself.
No, I can't stand him. He was just with the moment that he was like, we need to appreciate Ben Simmons for what he does. He's a treasure. I was like, you're just a talking head.
Yeah.
I was like, you're the antithesis of what this team needs.
That
was the moment that I was done with Doc.
And then here they are. But hey, that about wraps it up for us tonight. Backing up with the Eagles and Sixers. Tony's coming up with his heat ratio live, so we're gonna roll right into that. But there is some Flyers news out there. They lost again tonight. It just, with all the goodwill that they built up this last week, has been a little rough, but still flyered up, and we'll get into them next week. And with the Phillies, JT's already in camp. A few other people reporting early. Some news they signed some off the wall pitchers like Kobe Allard. Like, I'm not worried about that, but there's still some moves I think they're going to make, especially once they get down to Florida and figure out what they have. So we'll be able to talk Phillies next week as well. But for Dave, for Mark, this is 4th and Go here on the Heat Ratio Sports Network. We'll be back. Enjoy championship weekend. And until then, let's go.